Hey, it's Rachel with Journey Back Quilts. In this series, we're going to be making traditional quilt blocks. Today's lesson, we're going to be making the Sawtooth Star, also called Evening Star, Morning Star, Variable Star, and North Star. You ready? Let's get going. To make the Sawtooth Star, we're going to need a few different fabrics. You're going to need a background that's measuring 7.5 inches. This is going to be my center. You could do whatever you want for your center of the star. It needs to measure 6.5 inches square. Then you'll need 4 1/8 squares, 4 of them. And we're going to be making our 4 at a time flying geese method. And you can watch the video here to go do that with this dimensions of pieces. I'm going to fast forward through this portion so you don't have to sit and wait and watch through this. So if you don't know how to make those, go watch that video and then I'll see you back here in just a minute. Then you're also going to need 4 3.5 inch squares for background. Okay, I'm going to go make these flying geese and I'll see you back here in just a second. All right, now that we're done making those, we need to square these up to 3.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So I'm going to use my 6.5 inch ruler, putting the diagonal right on the diagonal of my block on this side and lining it up to 3 1/4. That's our center mark. And that will help us square it up just perfectly. We also want about 1/4 inch of fabric from that point to the edge of our fabric. So it looks like these are a little oversized, which I love because then I can square it up exactly to the size that I want it. So I'm going to cut that side and this side, and then I'm going to rotate the block, line it back up to 6.5 by 3.5. And 3 1/4 should still be hitting right there in the center point. And then trim this side and the top. And there we go. There's our cute little flying geese block. And we need to do that to the rest of them. And I'll see you back here as soon as you're done. Now that we're done squaring those up, we just need to lay this block out. So here is my center block. And then our flying geese are going to be pointing towards the center on all 4 sides. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. So easy and fast. And then our little 3.5 inch are going in the sides here, up in the corners, and there we go. Now we're just going to sew it together like a 3 patch, sewing them into rows of 3, ironing the seams in opposite directions so that we can nest the seam. So let's go to the sewing machine. So I'm just going to put a 3.5 inch block on the edge of my flying geese, and I'm going to flip it around the other way so that I can sew from an easier side. That way I'm not going through all of this bulky seams right here, and the needle will have a happier time going over them. Okay, and then moving down to the center of the block, so I've got my middle and a flying geese put together. Now our seam needs to run right here where this X marks the spot, right there, so we don't chop off our corner and it's or chop off our point and it's further enough away from the edge. So line those up, raw edges together, and then 1/4 inch seam allowance. So this is a good test to see if your needle is in the right position, if it's hitting right there at the point. Just go over it slowly and see how it's working for you. If it's too far to one side or the other, not hitting right there in the center, you might want to move your needle over one way or another so that it's hitting right in the center. Okay, now I'm on the bottom row. And I'm just chain piecing all of these. Okay, now I'm going to clip apart these connecting threads. Lay them back out on my board the way they were. And then start back up at the top again. and add a 3.5-inch square to that side. Match up those raw edges. The other flying geese to the center row. And the last row. Clip apart those connecting threads and let's take it to the ironing board. And like I said, we want to iron these seams going in opposite directions so that we can nest the seams. So I'm going to iron all of my seams toward the flying geese units on all of these rows. That will just make it easier to think of. So we're going to lift up this row so that the seam is laying flat and let the iron press it over towards the flying geese. Same thing with the other side. Just flip it around. Also with the other row, that's just like this. Okay, and then the center, I'm going to lay the center block on my mat and kind of flip these over and then just hold it up as we push the iron over. And look at those perfect points. Love it. Okay, so now when we put our rows on, make sure they're going the right direction. Our seams are going to be going in opposite directions right here so we can nest those seams. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I just start with one side first and get that sewn down. We're going to sew it right to here, pause and readjust all of our layers, and then keep sewing. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine. Again, we want our seam to hit right there where X marks the spot. And then make sure that this side is nested. You can lift your foot, keep your needle down, and spin your block around so you can see if those are nesting well. You can also feel it with your finger. Make sure that there's no big bumps, there's no hollow spots, that it's nested right in place. What I like to do is just lift this top block, scoot it back a little bit, and then slide it forward until I hit that seam. And I can feel it just lock right in place. And that way I know it's exactly where I want it to be. Okay, and then line up those. Make sure your foot's back down. There we go. Okay, here's the moment of truth. Let's see. It's always a guess. Oh, look at that. They're so beautiful. Perfect. Perfect, perfect points. Okay, next side, make sure it's going the right way. It's pointing into the middle. You don't want to accidentally put it on backwards. Nest those first set of seams. And pause, keep your foot and your needle down. Adjust the other layers. Okay, let's see how this side turned out. Oh yeah, sweet. All right, let's go back to the ironing board. I'm going to iron all these seams going in towards the middle so that we can hide them since I'm using a white background. That way we won't see any of our seams on this block. You can open your seams if you'd prefer. And then I just give it a good press all around, making sure everything's laying nice and flat. Okay, now I'm going to square it up, make sure that it's measuring 12.5 inches. The only thing you want to be careful of is that we do want a 1/4 inch away from our points to the edge of the fabric so that when we put the borders or the sashing or another block on top, that everything is going to, all of our points are going to stay in place. So 3 1/4 is our line going to run down this very first seam on the side. That will help you get it lined up. And then if you do 3 1/4 this way, that way you'll get it all lined up. But double check that you have enough fabric on those points that you're not going to be chopping anything off. Okay, I have just a little tiny hair here and here. Maybe here. Okay, there we go. Great job making the Sawtooth Star. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so that you get notified of all these lessons so you can sew along with me. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today in making this Sawtooth Star. I hope that you enjoyed this and you're going to go make one for yourself. It was so fun and so simple, wasn't it? We would love to see the pictures of these blocks that you're making. You can join our free Facebook group with the link in the description box. If you would like more tips, tricks, and tutorials, I invite you to join our society, where you will get a library full of quilting tutorials to help you in your quilting journey. Next week, we're going to be making the Dutchman puzzle block. I'll see you then. Next week, we're going to be making... what's it called? I forgot what it was called.